Okay, let's talk a little bit about time and material workflow. So the first thing that we want to do is we need to talk about how we're going to get our time onto the project and then bill for it, and how we're going to get our materials onto the project and bill for it. And more than likely, you're probably doing that right now by entering in time through a daily log or directly in human resources or maybe on this job directly. And your materials, you're probably entering in invoices, and that time and that material is being reflected into the job cost analysis reports, specifically the cost detail. But we've added a new report here called Time and Material Details, which will allow you to see all of the items that have been coded to the job and whether they've been billed or not. So let's get started by entering in some time. I'm going to do that by clicking on the time details, and I'm going to choose this time just to enter time directly onto the project. Okay, so now that I've entered this report, you can see there's nothing here. I'm going to go ahead and create a new time entry. It's going to pre-fill with information about me and other things that have been configured in the system. So this knows that I am the administrator, knows what project I'm on. We need to be able to code this to a specific WBS code, phase code, analytic account on this particular project. So if the project has a WBS code or a work breakdown structure, we could code this to a specific WBS code on this project. And we can code it to a specific cost code. I'm just going to code this to the general conditions of this job. I'm going to leave all of this payroll information the same. Let's put in some time. We'll say that our start time is 8 o'clock in the morning and our end time is 5 o'clock at night, which is going to be 9 hours. There's a couple of new fields on the end of this time entry. One called cost only. If this is checked, then this will not pass the time over to payroll. It will only cost this time to the project. And the last is related to the last video where we set up a default bill rate. So here's the bill rate that is assigned to the employee, but I could click on this and I could assign in a different bill rate if I like. Let's go ahead and save this and approve this time. And then let's add in an invoice. Let's get some materials on the job. So let's go back to our job dashboard here. Let's look at our AP invoices and create a new one real quick. We'll say the vendor is Hindsight Technologies. Put in the vendor number, invoice number, the invoice date, let it pre-fill with information from the vendor record. And now let's put in some lines. This is really important. Your customer invoice will reflect what you put here. So if you put one line that is materials and we code it to a specific general ledger account and a specific cost code, we want to associate this to our material category. Then we'll say that this is $500 in materials. Now I'm going to go ahead and save, approve, and validate this invoice so that it can generate the job cost entries. We'll approve it and validate it. Now let's go see how these two things have been reflected in our project. We'll use our breadcrumb and go back to the time and material job dashboard, and we'll look at our T&M detail analysis report here, and you'll notice that we have two entries on here now. We have one for the labor of 9 hours, and we have one for the material of $500. You'll notice a couple of things, and it's a worthy conversation to point out a few things. First of all, you'll notice that both of these are negative numbers. In 2020, our analytic accounts are not just tracking costs. We track costs and revenue. Revenue is an increase to the project, and costs are a decrease to the project. Therefore, negative numbers reflect costs on this project. It's possible to see revenue in these reports as well, and we could show that by filtering out certain things. The next thing to point out is we didn't specify an amount for labor. But if you remember in our last video, when we set up administrator, there were two fields. One was a default cost and one was a default bill rate. That is reflected here. The amount reflects the default cost that we put in of $50. 9 times $50 is $450. And here is the default bill rate that we set up. The next thing we need to do is create an invoice for our customer. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to select these two items. We could select whichever one we want, both, all, however we want to do it. And we're going to come action and create an invoice. That's going to take these items, automatically generate an invoice to our customer, Regency Development. Here's our time and material job, and here is the new invoice that has been created. So looking at this now, we can see that here is our materials. We had $500 plus our 20% markup. Our technician, 9 hours at $85, but if you remember, we had a 5% markup on that $85. So we have a little bit of markup in here as well. If you don't want to mark up your labor, in the markup, simply put the markup amount to 0, and that would have left this at $85 here. So you're ready to go. You can validate this invoice, send it off to your customer, receive payment, and you're ready to rock and roll. Please let us know if you have any questions, comments, or can think of any ways that we might be able to improve this product. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.